Hey YouTube, this is Pervious1030 with Tin Can Gardening, and today we're going to talk a little bit about companion planting and multifunctional plants. For those of you that don't know, companion planting is whenever you take two or more plants that help each other in some way, shape, or form. For example, Three Sisters garden, whenever you plant corn with beans and squash. What is going on there is the corn is acting as poles for your pole beans to climb up, and the beans are acting as a nitrogen source for the squash and the corn, and the squash is acting as a ground cover to keep in the moisture. So everything's working together in harmony and happily. It's also a good idea to put some marigolds in there for pest control, and maybe some onions or garlic around the border. So today we're going to talk about a few plants also that are multifunctional and work well with each other. First up is the garden bean, the king of the garden. This bean right here is a clama bush. So that's very important too, the difference between a bush and a pole bean. Obviously, pole beans climbing, bushing out. Beans are picking plant. The more you pick, the more they grow. Some beans have a higher yield rate than the others. Basically, some produce more. Different strains will give you different things. If you want some color in your garden, you can always get purple beans. You can get yellow beans, red beans, a whole bunch of different types of beans. There's also beans called yard longs. They get like 30 inches long. Real nutty flavor. They got to be kind of simmered instead of boiled. They're not good boiled, just simmered. So garden beans are always good. Here's an example of a colorful loom. These are garden peas, the blue potted. These also fix nitrogen to the soil, so they would also do well with corn or any high nitrogen big feeding plant like zucchini, corn, or anything like that. So peas, beans, fix nitrogen. Moving on. Corn. Corn can be used for many different things. They have popping corn, they have feeding corn, there is big corn, different colored corn. I'm glad to see heirloom corn coming back into this country because there's a lot of GMO corn out there, guys. Whenever I lived in Colorado, there were talks of GMO fields just popping up out of nowhere. Nobody knows how they got there, they just got there. So with corn, it's very important to make sure that you get heirloom corn and try to keep the variety of heirloom quality. Corn can also be used to make things of alcohol. It can be used to make flour, corn flour, and it can be eaten raw, and you can even make stuff out of the cob. So corn's another multifunctional crop. Wheat is another multifunctional crop. It can be used to feed livestock, it can be used to make bread, it can be used to just produce seed and have seed to trade. Always good option, and it's a great cover crop as well. Moving on, hot stuff. Hot peppers have multi-functions. It can be used to clear up your sinuses. It can be made into a paste to put on those aches and pains. You know, not everybody has money to be running off to the doctors every time they get a boo-boo. So you can also do that with this. And you can use the really hot stuff to make bug spray out of, and you can also make a defensive weapon out of this. A little bit of oil, some pepper juice in a spray bottle. It ain't no joke, it burns. So with the hot pepper, the hotter the Calvin, the hotter the oil, you don't want to get this stuff in your eyes. So just a little thought about some multifunctioning uses of peppers. On to my herbs. There are two types of herbs. There are culinary herbs and medicinal herbs. Now, culinary herbs can also be used as medicinal herbs, and there are some medicinal herbs that can be used as culinary herbs. So they go both ways. These are also great to have in your garden because not only do they attract some beneficial insects, they repel other non-beneficial insects, and if you're really into Eastern medicine, or you're into old school remedies, always good to have herbs laying around. Now, flowers that are herbs. Chamomile, also a medicinal herb, helps with anxiety, calms you down, that sort of stuff. But it's also a beneficial bug flower, so it draws in really beneficial bugs. Now, other flowers that are multi-purposes. These are my marigolds. If I can see that too well. I collected all the seeds from these. Marigolds are edible, to my understanding, and they also repel certain bugs and bug infestations and things like that. So, always good to have. Here's some sunflowers and some zinnias. These also are multifunctional because the sunflowers, whenever the seeds do drop, eventually it brings in the birds. You can always feed your birds with them. You can also, you know, just kind of spruce up the yard, give it a little color, that sort of thing. But they also bring in beneficial bugs. The reason why you want birds in your garden, if any of you guys have ever seen a horned tomato worm, they are huge. And they will devastate a tomato plant in 2 days, guaranteed. So it's always good to have birds eyeballing your yard. If they see that big fat worm, it don't stand a chance. So keep a good variety of flowers. Okay, root crops. Here we go. So root crops can do quite a few things. They can be used as cover crops. The radish, if you take off the top and you liquefy it, it can be used to feed seeds. It's a very light fertilizer for seeds. So I picked that up out of a book somewhere. I don't even remember what book it was, but it was good information and it works. And, you know, I'm sure they have some medicinal, edible value in the vegetables, so you know they're good for you. Red beets, also good for you. You can eat the tops, eat the bottoms, all good. Turnips, love me some turnip greens, love turnips. Edible plant, or you can cut the tops off and use them as compost. Multifunctional. Well, we'll do this one first, another beet. This is a pure kugel. I probably said that wrong, but another type of beet. Always good to have variety. And this guy, another type of beet. This is a sugar beet. Now, this beet has a few different things you can do with it. You can turn the tops into compost. You can turn it into sugar. That's what this beet is for. It's produced a lot in the United States for that exact reason. And it can also be used to feed livestock. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know the difference between cold weather, warm weather plants, and production, if you will. So, here's a good example of a cold weather plant, the cabbage, and another cold weather plant, the winter squash. Now, the reason why these are important is if you live in a northern climate, you can leave these sit out in the cold. Same thing with lettuce. They're cold weather plants. They like the cold, so you can leave them out there, and you know they're still edible. They're not going to die. They can take a cooler climate than tomatoes, peppers. Those would be long gone and just still be sitting out there. So always good to have a few cold weather crops. Unfortunately, down here in South Florida, I have a heck of a time getting these things to grow. You really got to baby them and keep them out of the heat. So they don't like heat, they like the cold. So you guys up there in Michigan, Ohio, PA, you know what I'm talking about. These are great things to have on hand. There's quite a few different varieties of cabbages as well, so you don't have to go with the plain bland. You can get a few purple varieties and things of that nature. Also with the winter squash, it keeps for a very long time. And if you guys look right there at that picture, you see all those seeds right there? That's a lot of seeds. You know, you can collect them and have plenty to give your neighbors, and you know, because you ain't going to use them all unless you have a really big field and you plan on doing a really big crop of these. It's always good to share your seeds. So that's always good to have. Now another plant that produces a lot of seeds is cantaloupe. If you ever opened up a cantaloupe, you got to scoop all those seeds out, and most people just throw them away. That's a lot of food you guys are throwing away if you think about it, you know. And one day, who knows? Seeds might be a form of currency. They were at one point in history. History repeats itself, so you just never know. Zucchini is another variety. This is Ford Hook zucchini. I got 50 seeds, and actually off of this particular zucchini, I made about 5 loaves of bread and collected probably 6 of these envelopes full of seeds. So, you know, also another good seed multiplier that you can take and share your seeds with your neighbors. No sense in being stingy with them. So that's my video today, guys. And you know, multifunctioning plants is something to really think about. And while we're talking about multifunctioning plants, they can also be used as a security feature as well. Things like blackberries and rose bushes. If you put them in front of your windows, or cactuses as we have down here in Florida, it can deter people from wanting to climb through that window. You know, I don't know about you, but I ain't really all that hot about climbing through some blackberry bushes because they don't feel all that great. Same thing with poison ivy. Most people look at poison ivy as a nuisance plant, but poison ivy can also work to your advantage. Personally, I wouldn't want it on my property, so to speak, but you know, desperate times call for desperate measures. So if anybody knows of poison ivy and they see it, they're not just going to go traipsing through there because they're going to regret it in a day or two. And that's, you know, that's minor compared to the instant pain and not getting near of a blackberry bush. So something else to think of. Plants can also be used in a security setting as well. So that's my video today, guys. You know, rate, subscribe, let me know what you think. I'm just trying to get these videos out there and share what I know with you guys, and hopefully you learn from it. And if I was wrong on anything or anything like that, please let me know, because I don't know everything. I'm not a master gardener. I've just been doing this long enough to know what I know, I guess, if that makes sense. So till next time, this is Pervious1030, and remember, if you teach a man to garden, you're going to feed him and his family for the rest of his life. Have a good one.